Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner Classic Let Non-Classics. This is episode number 1786 and Doubleshot number 1680. Now, for this review and the next review, it's basically a Spider-Man and Michael Morbius trade. Because why the heck not? This first Spider-Man trade is some from published back in the 1990s. Done by the guy who created Savage Dragon, Eric Larson. Yep, this book contains issues. This is basically Spider-Man Revenge of the Sinister 6. Yes, this contains issues 16. Yeah, I think it's 15. Yeah, I believe it's like 15 through... It is 15 and 18 to 23. Of course, Eric Larson does the writing and artwork in these issues. Terry McGivern is the co-writer for these issues, and of course, and for the artwork is done by Scott McDaniel. And apparently, Eric Larson also the inking as well. He did everything for this book. Yep. Now, the first issue put in here has nothing to do with the storyline for Sinister 6. Nope, nothing to do with it at all. Excuse me, it's a Mutant Factory issue where it has Spider Team with the Beast for an issue. That was some of the point. That's simply to think of that one. Yeah, and plus, Eric Larson did take a book very briefly from Todd McFarlane, who left with issue 15. Yes. Yeah. Nope, not this guy. There we go. Yes. He did this book, well, mostly anyways, just for these issues here. And that was it. Yep. That was it. Yeah, he took over the book as a regular semi just for the story arc, and then they had still have a bunch of other basically writers basically on the book. Now, in the case of this issue itself, what's the story for issue 15? Yeah, it just basically Spider-Man with Mary Jane, some fighting in here, it's basically, I believe this issue was also collected in the Mutant Factor trade. Yes, just a really good story with Spider-Man and the Beast in here. And then comes basically 18 through 23. This is the Revenge of the Sinister Six. This is the third storyline featuring the Sinister Six. The debut of the Sinister Six was way back in the very first Amazing Spider-Man annual released in 1964, which came like not long after Craven's first appearance, by the way. Yes, this lineup is completely different from the original. It is comprised of Dr. Octopus, the Vulture, Sandman, who was turned into a glass crystal story, along with Hobgoblin and Venom. Yes, seriously. And Eric Larson wrote and drew this whole story. The Spider-Man actually had help this time take up the Sinister Six. It wasn't like him versus the entire... It's not like a 6-on-1 handicap match with him in this storyline. Somewhat like that, yes. But he has help this time. In the first issue, you have guest appearance by the Dan Ketch Ghost Rider. You know, it's like a tell of Tim because the motorcycle was not the same one that Johnny Blaze drives. And plus, he was the Ghost Rider of the 1990s. He's still somewhere around this very day, but the guy is a freaking jack squat in years because it's all about Johnny Blaze. Sam, of course, is informed about the reunion of Sinister Six. He doesn't want much part of it, but he has no choice to be part anyways. Though, part halfway the storyline turned to glass, and you see like, oh yeah, old reunion of old, like you have Sandman, Vulture, Dr. Octopus, Electro, Mysterio, and Hobgoblin. Venom is not really part of the... He was part of the previous Sinister Six, not this one. Yes. Now, the thing is, why is Hobgoblin here? because it's the 90s. He was the hobgoblin. He was basically the goblin that was around at this point. Green Goblin was not really active at this point in time. Norman Osborn at this point in time had been dead for almost 20 years before they retconned a Clone Saga. Harry died prior to this, so can't be him. So, okay. And plus, Third Green Goblin was only around for just for a brief storyline. So, we gotta throw in a goblin, and Marvel loves a goblin, so throw in the Hobgoblin. He was pretty much the way to replace for the Green Goblin. That was kind of probably the reason for his creation. I've never met the Hobgoblin's creator. Let's see, who created the Hobgoblin? I think it was, let's see. It was, Roger Stern and John Reed Jr. I've never met either of these two guys. And can you believe Hobgoblin's been around? Well, the original, anyways. He's still somewhat active as the character. Since March of 1983. So, roughly almost 40 years his character's been around. And I've only recognized basically two people as the Hobgoblin because there were many imposters. Oh my gosh! Throw out the fact that Roger Kingsley was in fact the Hobgoblin. So in actuality, there's only been three. You have Roger Kingsley, who was the original Hobgoblin, his successor, the one who was not an imposter, Jason McIndale, and then of course is Phil Urich. Yeah, and Phil and Ben Urich, Roger Kingsley is still very much active to this very day. Yep. I mean, his last thing he's known for doing is trying to steal a decommissioned helicarrier. Yeah. And he was a fashion mogul. Yep, that was the thing with Roger Kingsley. He was, in fact, a fashion mogul. Yeah, I love the character of Hobgoblin because when I watched the Spider-Man animated series, he was the Goblin at that point in time. Now I watched a little bit of I actually love enjoying watching the Spider-Man animated series, and I also really enjoy the Green Goblin as well. So whenever any comic that features the Hobgoblin, I'm basically like all there. It's like I just have to read it because, well, he's a really cool character. Now, his most recent appearance to date. Now, believe it or not, like after he tangled, now the most recent thing he's involved with was actually the Ravencroft miniseries. So he did have a couple one shots appeared, which was Marvel Snapshot Spider-Man and Marvel Voices Legacy. Yeah, and that was the most recent thing. Marvel Voices is basically a book to attract new artists. And a lot of these issues, basically, they're just, well, the artwork is not very good. Now, here's a little fun fact for you. When was the last time that Hobgoblin fought Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man? Anyway, I think, that's a really good question. When was the last time they fought Superior Spider-Man? Issue 25. Yeah, that was the last time they kind of fought him. At least he appeared in the main Spider-Man book. That was back in 2014. It's like Marvel doesn't want him to fight Spider-Man. Like he fought Spider-Woman. He fought freaking Deadpool. Well, he fought Miles. It's like Marvel just doesn't know what to do with Hobgoblin anymore. That's the thing. So Sandman is the only part, but he basically calls for backup. Oh, and here's something I really love though. Dr. Octopus is wearing his white coat. Oh yeah, and also the Hulk gets dragged into this because it's the 90s, and Hulk in the early 90s, for whatever reason some of his comics, he had the intelligence of Bruce Banner. Yep. So fighting. Yeah, lots of fighting. But handed to him, and then of course you have in part 3 of the story, issue 20 of the series for Spider-Man, we have a guest appearance by Solo, and his name is Jason Bourne. No, I'm not kidding about that. That seriously is his real name. Of course, we also have the Hulk and Deathlock. Yes, Solo did have a very brief, a couple brief ongoing series. Actually, his name is James Bourne. Yeah, he's a creation of David Lee and Mark Silvestri. And you might be curious though, like in the case of Nova and Solo has had a couple very brief miniseries. Yep, yes he did. He had first a 5-issue miniseries released not long after this. I think it was before or after this. He had one released in 1984. He had a very brief limited series again released in 2016. Yeah. Same guy in the suit. Yep. Now you might be curious though, did that appearance of the miniseries happen before or after his time period in this book? After. Yeah, pretty much like right after the story wrapped up, he pretty much popped up for a couple issues of Amazing Experiment for a couple of brief issues. And he popped up for an issue of Nick Fury's of S.H.I.E.L.D., Marvel Comics Presents, and the 2017 Amazing Experiment. Then he finally got his own miniseries, which is 4 issues. 2 issues of Wolverine. Became a semi-recurring character in Cable and Deadpool. For a couple issues of Cable with Civil War Frontline. Appeared in basically a bunch of miniseries. The only one he appeared on a regular basis was Deadpool. And Deadpool Mercs and Money. And then he got his own solo book. And after the solo book wrapped up a few years ago, he made 2 appearances. Issue 298 of Despicable Deadpool and issue 1 of Force Works 2020. And that was it for him. So, yeah, Larson... Yeah, so this basically was Larson's first exposure to actually writing and drawing Nova. Of course, he would have writing the character in 2000. Yeah, which I have read that book. It is really good. Shocking that book was canceled 7 issues. It's even more shocking that run was never put into trade. You're thinking, really? You're saying that's really good and don't trade for it? Yeah, no trade for it. Released over 20 years ago and no trade. Basically also have where MJ gets a part in a movie. Also the way that Eric Larson draws MJ seems like she's got like a kind of like a bulge in her belly. She's a beautiful woman, but man, what is up with the belly? It's like, is MJ putting on weight? Also, here's Dr. Octopus in his white suit, which he will return to actually in the 2010s. Yeah, Dan Slott actually had wear this outfit when he popped up in as a hologram of himself when he in the Superior Spider-Man book. When he was talking to Stunner, who looked like a beautiful woman, was actually a woman who was actually overweight. Yep. Yeah, then of course, Spider-Man getting injured. This happens to him. Yes. Like, oh crap, did Larson chop up his arm and replace it with his robotic arm? No, according to Spider-Man, this actually is a cast. Yes. And he teams him here with frickin' Deathlock. Yep. Now, weirdly enough, why in the world Solo would try to kill Spider-Man, I have no idea. Yeah, he's like, what's happened to me? And it's all cast, and he's basically out by the end of the storyline. Yeah, he gets out with Deathlock. And that was only issue 21. There's actually 2 more parts to this one. Basically, in issue 22, he brings in not only Ghost Rider and, of course, the Hulk and Deathlock, he brings in Sleepwalker. You're thinking, who the heck is Sleepwalker? Is it a creation of Eric Larson, you might ask? Well, Rick Sheridan, the guy who is him, he's the creation of Bob Butsky and Brett Bivens. Yes. The host of The Sleepwalker. Yeah. I mean, he had been around at this point for about 2 years. At the time this was released in 1990, actually about a year. Yeah, he was around for about a year by the time this book was released. Mm-hmm. Yep. That's why Ghostwire, Sleepwalker, and the Hulk are here. It's New Fantastic Four. Yep. Yeah, it's basically what it is. It's New Fantastic Four appearing for like one issue. Mm-hmm. Yep. And then the final issue basically has basically more help. And look, great close up of Doctor Octopus in his white suit. Mm-hmm. And of course you have Vulture pulling a gun on Doctor Octopus. Yep. Of course they poke fun at it, and MJ Bentley's the same bed as well. The way this is drawn is kind of weird. It's like she's not seeing this thing, but she's mentioned. And it's, oh yeah, I mentioned about the arm because of the cast. Yeah, we also have where Hobgoblin is demonic with a tongue. Yeah, this actually is not Roger Kingsley in the mask. Nope, this is actually Jason McIndale. Because he's possessed by Demogoblin. Yep. And apparently in this story they kill off Sam, but he does come back. And then he gets replaced by freaking Gog. Yes, Gog. Now I love this storyline. It's fantastic. Yeah, it's like, Gog? Yes. They throw this giant alien who Craven the Hunter once adopted his own child. Yeah. So, Spider-Man and the heroes with the help of the Fantastic Four. And then Nova shows up. And Solo. And you have these guys beating up the Sinister Six. You have briefly try to have Hulk and Thing basically try to team up with a fight. And of course, Dr. Octopus basically is like, oh, I'll blow up the planet. Nope, not really. And of course, Richards is like, I think not Octopus. Richards, oh. Yeah, and of course, you have the Hulk basically throwing around Dr. Octopus, which is so funny. And then, of course, you have Vulture and Hago like, nah, this is not for us. We'll leave. Yep. Though Sam eventually is put back together. Yeah. And of course, the story ends with basically everyone celebrating Peter Parker's birthday. And apparently, they decided to throw in a backup feature for this book. Yes, Terry Kavanaugh did a backup feature for Spider-Man. Yep, there was a backup feature in some of these issues. Yeah, for some reason they threw these in here. I don't know what. Yeah, it's a backup feature that was started in issue number 19 called Doubleshot, which they put this right after the main story, which makes sense. I mean, it's a quick two-parter, and it's great. Yeah, it's basically Spider-Man take on Diablo. Yes, El Diablo. This is a Fantastic Four villain for a quick 2 issues. And that's it. I think it's great they threw this in here because it may make any sense to not throw in here. Yep. But yeah. Well, we're going to get the story. A 10 out of 10 guess is really good. Oh yeah, really. It's awesome. Next up it is Morbius. Epic Collection Volume 1. The Living Vampire. Yep. This book contains... Excuse me a minute. Contains Amazing Spider-Man 101 and 102, Marvel Team 3 through 4, Giant Head Superheroes number 1, Fear 2026, material from Vampire Tales 1 through 8, and Giant Head's Werewolf-by-Night number 4. 101 and 102 it's a two-part debut of the character of Michael Morbius. 101 was basically a one-issue off for Stan Lee, and pretty much the issue was basically his debut, and it's drawn really well. Yep, and I love the artwork here because it's the 70s. Mm-hmm. Now, Lee would do issue 10. He would actually not do 102, surprisingly, cover 103. These are your writers for these issues. You have Roy Thomas, Jerry Conway, Michael Frederick, Doug Moak, Steve Gerber, and Don McGranger, with artwork by Pablo Marcus, Tom Sutton, Louis Demick, and Virgil DeGio. The front cover is done by Gail Kane and John Romita, probably senior, and they did the back cover here. Yep. And this stuff here was released from October 1971, and finally the last thing I put in here, which is Giant Superhero number 4, is April of 1975. Basically, this is the order they put the stuff in here. Music on 101 and 102, put those two first. And then it's Marvel Team 3 through 4. Vampire Tales number 1. Giant Size Superheroes number 1, which they teased issue 2, which never was released. And they have Fear 21 to 24. Vampire Tales 3 through 8. And then they throw in Fear 25, 26, and then Giant Size Werewolf number 4. Yes. The man called Morbius. Yes, that is what he looked like in his debut appearance. Yep, this is part of the Six Arms saga. That's what this two-parter is. Well, actually kind of started with issue 100 and was concluded with issue 102. And during the storyline, it debuted Michael Morbius. This is when he was a bad guy. And by the way, this cover here, that was actually homage for issue, I think it was for issue of Black Panther, the Most Dangerous Man Alive 123. They homaged this very cover. What they did is they pretty much swapped out Spider-Man for Black Panther and Morbius and the Lizard for, I think it was like Lady Bullseye and like Wonder Villain. It's a great two-parter. It's a shame Stan Lee never got a chance to write the character. Nope, he never did. And then right after this two-parter, what was wrapped up, which should also explore his character's backstory in the second part of the two-parter, where he was a scientist trying to develop. He was had a fiance. And apparently, his nose was always like that, even before he was transformed into the living vampire. Yeah, it's kind of weird. He's like that. He becomes the way he is because he takes himself with a vampire bat. So that's why he does the stuff he does. Yep. Yeah. And of course, they wrap this up by this end of the story. Of course, Spider-Man himself basically is cured of his other arms. And they have 3 through 4, where you take him on Michael Morbius again. This actually, I believe, was his very next appearance. And in these two issues of our team are done by Jerry Conway. And he was still write the character even after this for a bit. Yeah. Issue 3, Spider-Man teams with Human Torch, take on Michael Morbius. In issue 4, he teams up with the X-Men. I've talked about this one already several times. Great issue. Yeah. Because you see Michael Morbius come out of the water, because it's probably just not long after he appeared in Amazing Spider-Man. They get dragged out of the water. And of course, the Thing deals with his own stuff, and he just had to have Human Torch here. Yeah, the weird thing about Marvel Team Up, if you read the first 3 issues, it's basically Spider-Man Human Torch. And there's actually the one issue of the original book where Spider-Man does not appear, because it's an issue where you have the Human Torch team with Iceman. Yeah. And of course, the story with Michael Morbius continues issue 4. And then right after this, we have Vampire Tales number 1. Which, by the way, they published in black and white. Yeah. And this is what Vampire Tales look like. If you're curious, though, what kind of series is Vampire Tales? Was specifically created by Mike Morbius? Not necessarily. It's more of a horror-driven series published by Epic Comics. Epic Comics was what we consider nowadays the equivalent to that of Vertigo, Marvel Max, or Black Label. It's an adult-oriented imprint. And it's in black and white. Yeah, and plus they threw it on the cover where they throw in Count Orlok from the movie Nosferatu. Yep. It's just a simple Michael Morbius story written by Steve Gerber. Yes, who occasionally would write the character even after this. Well, Paul Marcus, it's basically a good vampire story, and he fits in this adult-oriented imprint. Yeah, was this reprinted in color? No, it was only published in black and white. And then right after this, we have giant-sized superheroes featuring Spider-Man. We have Michael Morbius teaming up with Man-Wolf. Also, why in the world does... If you're curious, asking me, why does Michael Morbius not have the white look in this cover yet? In the book, he has it. Honestly, I have no idea. Yeah, and who writes this giant-sized issue? Jerry Conway. Yep, Jerry Conway. Vampire Tales, that was Steve Gerber. Yep. This is basically another story featuring the Man-Wolf, where... Now, the story behind Man-Wolf is that, well, here's the thing. John Jameson made an unrecorded mission to the moon and brought back a piece of moon rock, and whenever he wears it on his neck, he turns him into a werewolf, basically Man-Wolf. Though they kind of retconned in the 80s, where he apparently was called Star God. Yeah, seriously. That's the thing with him. It's kind of weird. But it's basically him turning into a werewolf. He's done this occasionally over the years. And sometimes basically that jewel might be stuck to his chest. Though apparently in this thing here, it's like they basically just flashback to it. And then, of course, he turns back to the Think Creature again. This bad thing was removed. And basically he has a team up with Michael Morbius because they want to take on Spider-Man. That's the point of it. It's a good, well-written, giant-sized issue. And it's shocking this was the only one ever published this one, because Spider-Man did have a giant-sized book afterwards, Giant-Sized Spider-Man. But for some reason, and to my knowledge, there has been no explained reason for this at all. Where, like they say there's going to be issue 2, but nope, there never was. Yes, for some reason they wanted to do an issue 2, but instead they did Giant-Sized Spider number 1. That was the very next thing they did right after this one. I love these giant-sized books because they're fun stories. Like, if you're curious, so who does Spider-Man team up with in these issues? Basically, giant-sized Spider-Man was simply him team with various characters. In the first one, he teams up with Dracula. Yes, seriously. He doesn't team with him, basically guest stars in the issue. In number 2, we have Shang-Chi. Number 3, you'll never see reprinted in a Marvel comic trade. Why is that? Because it features Doc Savage. No, seriously, that's the reason why for that. Issue 4, team with the Punisher. And I believe this is the issue that debuted the character of Moses Meganium, who actually later, just after this, appeared in Power Man in number 1. Yep. In issue 5, he teamed up with Man-Thing. And the last one was a reprint. Yep. They published 6 of these things, but only like three. I would say about 4 of the 5 of them, for 5 that were basically original stories. Those been collected in trade, but 6 you would never see in trade because it's a reprint, obviously, and 3 because of the fact that it is a issue they can't reprint because Doc Savage. Yeah, and they actually published another Giant-Sized Spider-Man book about 8 years ago. Yep, it was just a one-shot book. Yep, one shot, and that was it. Now, of course, Spider-Man was not the only one who got these giant-sized books. Guess who also got them? Avengers, Fantastic Four, the Avengers, Fantastic Four, the X-Men, and that was it. You might be thinking, did Daredevil get one of these things? Nope. Guess who also got them? Dracula and Werewolf-by-Night. Yes. Now, issue 20, which I've kind of talked about this before with Preludes and Nightmares, which basically just his first solo story, that does involve him fighting Spider-Man. And it does lead to basically encountering a child, and then 21 basically continues from that point forward. Now, these issues are written by Steve Gerber. Yep. So, this little girl basically has a connection with him for the first opening few issues, where she turns into a future version of herself, where he ends up biting her. Yes, he bites her. And it's a weird mix of sci-fi, which is kind of odd for Michael Morbius. Well, he is a sci-fi creative vampire. Yeah, how? Here's the thing about Michael Morbius. He's not a regular vampire. He's not like someone who bites somebody and gets turned into a vampire. Not necessarily. He is he turns himself because of science. He is scientific creative vampire. Basically, he's artificial vampire, and his vampire cravings got out of control. Yep. Yeah, five various creatures. Yeah, the stories here are really good, and they feel very standalone-ish. Yeah, we fought like a swordsman in medieval times. He has been a time travel, which seems quite odd. And at one point, he ends up in the future of all things, where he encounters an alien. No, seriously, that's what they did with the character. Have him counter an alien. Wow, so silly. And in issue 24, something really awesome happens. He has his first ever meeting with Blade, the vampire hunter. Yep, this is the first they ever met. And of course, Blade himself lets himself to like part with his story. He doesn't even wear his outfit with like red color scheme. They changed his color scheme for some reason. Yeah, very interesting thing. It's never really brought up very much. And then we have straight, basically, to Vampire Tales for issues. Well, from issues 2 through basically the rest of the feature for that one. Yep. Now we have basically more stuff with him black and white. This lasts for several issues in here. It's really good stories in here. Just him just encountering horror type stories, which fits him more to doing sci-fi stuff. Heck, issue 3 features him on a damn cover. Oh, here's a fun fact for you. Did you know this book actually had an annual published? You're thinking, really? It did? Yep, it did. And it was a reprint. Yes, seriously. And if you're curious though, how long did Vampire Tales last for? Did it last for 8 issues? No, it actually lasted for 11, and Morbius is in pretty much all of them. Yeah. Though we also guest appearance from Santana of all people. Yep. And I just love the Morbius stuff here. The black and white stuff is really awesome. Not a lot really know what they stuff, just really good stories here. And here's issue number 4. Morbius on Prowl. Yeah, a lot of these stories are very standalone-ish. It's a series of various stuff that Morbius is up to when he's not appearing in the stuff in color. And he's in this book for pretty much the long haul. He's probably the only character, aside from Blade, who's in pretty much most of the book. And then we have issue number 6, which this issue's been printed a couple times. This story here, they also have the Dracula's Daughter thing, which I believe this was also collected in, I think it was Tomb of Dracula, Essential Showcase Business Dracula, yes. Six, of course, basically looks like he just appears on just one page. It doesn't even have I think it's just a reprint in here. Yeah, I think that for Vampire Tales number 6. I think this issue here didn't even feature a Morbius story. So advertised featuring one. I think this one was just basically just a. Well, I think the reason why they threw it in here is because of the cameo on the page. So it's like one page Michael Morbius, but then he's there for the next couple issues. Yeah, there's Michael Morbius. It is only time you see him this whole issue. And then we go straight to issue 7. Yep. Which is more horror-based stuff for Michael Morbius, which makes total sense. Yeah. How do I feel about these stories? I love them. They're really good. And I'm glad I get a chance to talk about these Vampire Tale stuff. Yep. And then pretty much after issue 8, yes, issue 8, and then we finally go back to Avengers Into Fear, with issue number 25. We have Doug Moak and Steve Gerber basically doing the writing with Frank Ribbons on the artwork. Yes, Frank Ribbons. Where it's more dealing with this little girl in these issues here. Now you might be thinking, did Morbius feature in the book Fear? You might ask. I don't think it did. Let's see. No, it did continue even after he left. Actually, no, he did basically. It's not printed here in the trade, but he was here for pretty much the rest of this run before it got canceled. Yeah, he was here for pretty much the rest of the series. Yep, came with issue 20, and then he finally left with issue number, like, 31. Yeah, and this book only collects up to issue 26. Let's we're going to talk more about Vampire Tales. We have kind of conclusion of the story with this weird, more sci-fi stuff here. It's kind of like Vampire Tales, horror stories, Adventures to Fear, sci-fi stuff from Michael Morbius. Yep. Great stuff here. Giant Says Werewolf is basically his next physical appearance right after that. Yep. Yeah, for some reason they put that next, like, right afterwards. You also have his fiancée, Monty Bonacraft. Yeah, she actually appears very heavily in these Fear stories. Yeah, she appears in a good chunk of them per se. And this basically is the very next appearance of Mike Morbius just after Fear 26. Yep. And of course she appears throughout the remainder of this book. And then she disappears for many years into the first issue of Morbius' ongoing book published back in the 90s. So she's gone for almost 20 years. Yeah, I'd say about 16 years she's gone. Yep, and then she's there for the Mike Morbius book. And then her last appearance to date was actually in... Well, they killed her off in issue 622 of Amazing Spider-Man. That's when they killed her off. Though she make a flashback appearance at 699.1. Yep. Yeah, that's the last you saw of them. Yeah, basically in the way, this is basically Marlene, who has suffered amnesia, and Morbius is basically with her. And they're teaming up with basically Jack Russell here for this story. It's a really good story here. And you might be thinking, now, Conway created the character of Werewolf-by-Night. I believe this issue here was the first time these two ever met. This is by Doug Moak. Yep. But all in all, this is a great epic collection book. If you're curious still about early stuff from Mike Morbius, I do recommend checking this out because it's really good. Okay, so that's a particular view. I'm going to end it right here. Take a tiny break because I've been talking for almost 40 minutes. Talking about these two trades here. So when I come back, I have to put this video up. I will talk about two more trades. Well, potential-wise. One for Spider-Man, one for Morbius. And these two more recent stuff. Okay? Next video. Bye.